So I wanted to come on here and talk about something that I heard the other day that actually really sparked an interest in me. And it made a good point, especially with what we've said about going into egregores and um, the whole pendulum swinging and feeding certain things that maybe we may necessarily not want to be feeding. Um, and then, because there probably is a lot of question around, and I know that I've had it myself about being like, well, then what do I know? How do I have this discernment of what I'm feeding? And how do I make sure that I'm kind of engaging in the appropriate things for myself and, not falling trap or victim to certain things? And something I heard was about comedy and humor. Now, it's kind of a bold statement in a way, but at first it didn't really resonate at first. But then when I heard it, I was like, huh, wait a minute. I was like, I can see that, and I'll explain why. The statement was the fact that it was like that God, that God itself, or just the type of uh, omnipotence, like that type of omnipresence, is humor or is comedy, and the reason why was because of the fact that when you think about comedy, comedy has the ability to bring out a joy, bring out a feel good, um, bring out this sort of happiness and this joy as well. But in the same sense, we know that comedy can get kind of morbid, it can get kind of dark at times. It's a little bit edgy and stuff as well. And with that notion, I was thinking about the whole yin yang, how there's a little bit of the the dark in the light and a little bit of light in the dark as well. So it's almost like that equal balance it can be. Obviously, there's an influx of the fact that um, comedy could go too far, maybe, I guess, in a way. But then again, not really. It all depends on the perception of somebody. But I definitely thought that that was something to take note of, especially when we're thinking about and contemplating the presence of, what really is the sense of that true binding thing to all creation and to ourselves, and something that's residing within us as well, that we are very much a part of. And I think that's a great way to one way to look at it is look at comedy, look at humor, look at the type of things it initiates and its own. There's not necessarily any specific, type of pendulum or momentum that comedy itself carries. There's always certain degrees of it that maybe they do, but comedy itself gives a sense of being like, well, there's an intention to be said, wanting to make people laugh, wanting to make people feel good, relating with people as well and stuff. And sometimes that could be embracing flaws, that can be embracing darkness, that can be embracing things that maybe we are necessarily uncomfortable about. And in change, it's like reprogramming our mind because we're still finding a way to have a humor within it, and laugh about it as well. So it's reprogramming this pain and suffering maybe we may have experienced through something, through an occurrence, and then reprogram how we feel about that with our emotions by kind of changing it into something that we can accept and make it more lighthearted. Um, and especially with what we see nowadays with all cancel culture, and there's been that whole thing with Dave Chappelle and the debate about his comedy and stuff, and that's the thing too. It's like when I even look at that, his comedy was about the fact of addressing these issues in a way that we can talk about, in a way that doesn't necessarily have to be, that doesn't have the stance of being something so teetering on the edge, that doesn't need to be triggering. It's something that allows us to examine maybe the validity in things, and also examine the ridiculousness in some things, of where we need to not take some things too seriously. And that's where I feel the whole thing as well with comedy is, and let's think about it. You even have all of the, in ancient times, and the Greeks, they had their divine comedies. You had especially with Dante as well. It's like, why do they name those things, and like the humors as well? So I think it's important for us to maybe embrace some of those aspects when it comes to comedy and humor. Obviously, have a discernment when maybe um, approaching somebody. Somebody may not be, necessarily, um, I guess you could say, ready or primed to maybe some of the humor you may be trying to be coming with at first as well. But there is an intention to be addressed as well when engaging in that as well. There's also a way of showing your presence of what is it that you're accomplishing. It's a different story if you're coming from a way of trying to hurt, manipulate, or mock in such a way that's going to be hurtful to somebody as well, especially if, plain and simple, read the room when it comes to it as well. But I think that's something that we should try to embrace more. And I think that goes overlooked in ways as well, because I also think about it. I had a reading one time, a past life regression reading, how I that I was basically a jester in my past life. Uh, that and at first you hear that and you're like, oh man, that sounds really shitty. I'm not like a knight, I'm not a warrior or some sort of thing or anything. And it's like, the thing that got broken down to me was that, and this had also resonated because I always felt like, even growing up, that the jester was there. I always liked to be some sort of, have some sort. Not that I'm a funny person, in in any sort of way that I think hey, I'm gonna go do stand up comedy. Absolutely not. But I've always found a comfort in humor. I've always found a way of drawing to it as well. It's also something that runs big in my family. Everybody has this kind of humor side to them, to the degree of which, who finds what funny, that's entirely on, the person and the type of thing that's being conveyed. But so for the archetype of the jester, when you think about it, the jester is somebody who, yes, of course, is there for the entertainment of the kingdom and entertainment of the king as well. But the jester itself is probably, when you think about medieval times and ancient times, is the only one who is able to uh, maybe speak more freely through their type of humors, through the type of acts that they do, making parodies in a sort of way, but really being able to express maybe some of the ideas, ridiculousness, that the opinions of the people as well, rather not just themselves, but of the people as well. And also being able to convey maybe the king's message to the people. So the jester has this archetype of being able to roll around with many different types of groups. It's very an Aquarian aspect, very kind of innovative, very, maybe all over the place, and, little nutty, not really belonging to one specific group either. There's a lonely aspect as well when it comes to that, but I won't get into that right now. But the jester is also able to be in the king's ear. He can go from the group, from listening to the guardsmen, listening to the parishes as well, and the clergymen, and being able to go into, different classes of society, listening to the people and seeing what they think and their opinions and stuff, being able to go venture all outside of the kingdom and see what maybe some of those villages and some of those people may be thinking, being able to maybe get the word, because, oh, it's the jester. Nobody's going to take the jester's word. The jester's looked at almost as a joke. So therefore, it's not looked at as a threatening position. So the jester then is able to maybe get some sort of info ahead of time and can talk in the king's ear as well, and let the king know of any, pre-proposed like type of attack that may be happening as well, letting what maybe other people are saying about a decision that the king is trying to make. So like, this is the example of understanding how comedy and humor allows us to have a diversity when it comes to uh, being able to express and communicate certain topics or interests, as well as being able to um, you know actually get through with something, and also change the momentum or the stigma of something that may be, looked at as like, oh, it's a fringe thing, we can't talk about that or anything and stuff. It allows us to be able to express it so we can examine it, and also to be able to detach maybe a negative emotion from it and give it some more of a lightheartedness context to it, and therefore you can also start to see through it, and there becomes a transparency with it. So one thing that I would definitely say is like to really take in consideration humor and comedy in all things you do, even with your own struggles or obstacles that you're facing in your life. You know, that's why some of the some people are able to have that thing where they can joke about their miseries or joke about their mishaps as well. Sure, there's an balance with anything. You know, you can overdo it. It could be excess, you know, to the point where, you know, there's a tendency to maybe believe it in a sense that it's like almost like you don't take yourself seriously enough, or you take yourself too seriously. It's either or. So it's learning to have that balance, learning to have that discernment as well, but also being able to, maybe if you're having trouble detaching from something, detaching from an idea, a belief, a situation of some sort, a type of emotion as well, maybe try to take the approach of comedy. So I think that's something to consider. And as always, if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button. Be warmly appreciated. Helps with the algorithm, getting this video and this channel out to others as well. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Let me know how maybe humor and comedy has kind of played a significant role in your life and on your journey as well. So, till next time.